Okay, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. We are back with our weekly Midrash. We're going to be looking at some highlights over the last few chapters. We didn't have our Midrash um, last week, so we have some catching up to do. So I think we'll just look at some of the highlights. We're going all the way back to Deuteronomy 11, verse 26, up to 15, verse 6. So, we won't read through all of that. We'll just look through some key verses that I want to look at and deal with. And, as always, we want to um, not only see what it is that the scriptures meant to the people who were actually hearing these verses, but we want to be able to see how these things are able to relate to us, now, in our life and times, in the present. So we want to start off by looking over at we can, let's see, probably just read Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 26 through the end of the chapter, just 26 through 32. I'll put these verses up here real quick. Verse 26 down through 32. Let's start reading that, yeah.
See, I am setting before you today a blessing and curse. The blessing, when you obey the commandments of Yahweh, your Elohim, which I command you today. And the curse, if you do not obey the commandments of Yahweh, your Elohim, but turn aside from the way which I command you today, to go after other mighty ones, which you have not known. And it shall be when Yahweh your Elohim has brought you into the land which you go to possess, that you shall put the blessings on Mount Gerizim and the curses of Mount Ebal. Are they not beyond the Jordan towards the setting sun, in the land of the Kenites who dwell in the desert plain opposite of Gil? Besides the terebinth tree of Morah. For you are passing over the Jordan to go and to possess the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you, and you shall possess it and dwell in it, and you shall guard to do all the laws and right rulings which I am setting before you today.
Okay, very good. So we start off here with this Moshe, again throughout the chapter the book actually of Deuteronomy, Moshe's kind of giving his final instructions to the people of Israel before they go over and cross over into the promised land. So we see a lot of retelling of the previous commands that were previously given to the people, and also we see some we see some amendments. There's some amendments to already given commands that we'll go over as we go through. But when we start off here, it says, see, or behold, I am setting before you today a blessing and a curse. When we look at this word here, see, that's translated see, or behold, that is the word that is ra'ah. Ra'ah. Let me pull it up here on the dictionary here. To see, literally, figuratively, in numerous applications, to advise, self, appear, approve, behold, consider, discern, to gaze, to look on, to meet. It's interesting about this word ra'ah is there's also a bird of prey that is actually, shares the same root. This word here, ra'ah. So when you think about birds of prey, they're able to see. They have this keen vision, like they fly way up, high, and they're looking down at their prey before they strike, right? So they're able to, visualize this thing, but they're not only visualizing it, it does them no good unless they actually engage the thing, right? You can't eat something from afar off. So when we think about this word ra'ah, it has the idea of seeing, obviously, but it also carries the idea of interaction and engagement and relationship, right? We think about the bird of prey; it has a very intimate relationship with its with the thing that it's about to eat. It's not so good for the for the prey, obviously, but you have this idea of not only being able to look upon or see a thing or behold this thing, but to actually don't do that, to engage with that thing. So when we see, and this is something that's kind of it exists with these ideas that we find in Hebrew thought. This word that's translated as see is not just looking at, it's experiencing it. When we think about the word that we know that is to hear, right? It's not just hearing, it's obeying. So there's action that's involved with the word, right? You're not just looking at it, you're going to do something with the thing that you're looking at. So this is what Moshe here is dealing with in terms of these blessings and these curses, right? So when we think about the idea of blessings and curses, it's not kind of this mysterious kind of a thing that's going on, right? If you do like it's not like a magic spell or anything that's going on when you look at these blessings and these curses. It's basically the same vein as what something that Yeshua taught in terms of the reaping what you sow. If you will reap, you will benefit from that which you put in the ground, right? So when we look at these blessings, the blessings that are associated with Yahweh's law and his statutes and commandments, if you conduct yourself in a certain manner, good things are going to happen to you. right? If you deal justly, if you have just uh weights and measures with the people that you do business with, you're probably going to do good business, right? But if you're crooked in your dealings, there could be adverse consequences that's attached to it. So it's not as if I do these things that the Most High is saying that I do, these magical good things are going to happen to me. I'm sowing goodness, and therefore I'm reaping goodness. Goodness is coming back because that's what I'm putting out. That's one aspect, right? But also when we think about the Most High and we think about his sovereignty and the fact that he literally is the ruler of everything, when we're thinking about these things from an adversely, when we're thinking about it from the negative aspect in terms of not doing the commandments, right? Because 27 says the blessing if you listen to the commandments, if you do the things that I command for you to do, you'll receive blessings, which I'm commanding you today. And verse 28, and the curse if you do not listen to my commandments. So I think the same thing is true with the curses in terms of it not being necessarily kind of a metaphysical connection. It's just physical. It's just a physical thing. If you do good things, if you sow goodness, you're going to reap goodness. And if you sow badness, for lack of a better word, you're going to receive badness. But I think doubly, you have the idea that the Most High will not only allow for you to receive the badness that you sow, but he's also going to put things on you. He's also going to cause bad things to happen to you as a result of your disobedience. And then I guess as I'm saying it, the same thing can be true on the other end. So I'm just saying that it's not kind of solely this thing where it's we have to look at it first from just a physical standpoint first, but then also realizing that there is spiritual repercussions that will be there, whether they're positive or negative. Because he does say he's going to, if you keep my commandments, he's going to cause blessings to overtake you. But also the same is true, again, on the reverse. So, here it's not going through necessary blessings and cursings. That'll be, a few chapters later. But I just wanted to look at that idea and just think about the idea of sowing and reaping, and actually looking at the commandments of Yahweh from kind of just the physical standpoint of things of literally happening. Because when we look at the commandments again, we looked at this 2 weeks ago. And when we talked about the, I think it was 6. No, it was 10, 19. Ten 18. Here where it says he being Most High, being Yahweh, he doth execute the judgment of the fatherless and the widow, and loves the stranger, and giving him food and clothes. talking about the Most High. So we talked about how when we look at the commandments of Yahweh, when we do them, causes us to walk in the character of the Almighty. So when we look at His law, statutes, and commandments in general, it's showing us His character and how we exemplify or manifest His character in the world. So when we're going through these couple chapters here, we're going to be looking at some things that, again, that we um, want to be able to see how we are able to manifest these things, because we have to remember that when we look at these commands, you know, Moses is giving you specific instructions in terms of what the people were to do when they went over into the land. Like, these were the instructions that they were taking over into the land. Um, and we obviously are not in the land. He's given these statutes and these commandments concerning and judgments concerning people living in a community as a nation, um, a nation under God, not like this place that we are in today. So we have to be able to look at these things and then also be able to figure out how we make these laws, statutes, and commands live through us in a place where um we don't have a government, right? We don't have these judges and things set in order. But I think that we're able to see underlying principles inside of these commands that we're able to use even today. Okay, so let's go down to anybody have any thoughts about this idea of blessings and curses before we go to chapter 12?
No. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to look at 12, 1 through 4. Chapter 12, 1 through 4. Let me get these numbers off of here. Okay, somebody read chapter 12, 1 through 4.
These are the laws and right rulings which you guard to do in the land which Yahweh of your fathers is giving you to possess. All the days that you live on the soil, completely destroy all the places where the nations which you are disposing serve their mighty ones, on the high mountains and on the hills and under every green tree. And you shall break down their slaughter places and smash their pillars and burn their ashram with fire. And you shall cut down the carved images of their mighty ones and shall destroy their image, their name, out of that place. Do not do to Yahweh your Elohim. Do not do so to Yahweh your Elohim.
Okay, good. So now, right off the bat, when we look at this, this is something that specifically that we, from a physical standpoint, aren't able to have carried out. Right? We can't live next door to a Catholic church and get together and run in there and tear the place up.
That's right.
Tear the idols down and burn. When you go through, I think it's in this chapter. When they talking about going and this was no, I think it's later. But they talk about going in and taking over these places and just destroying everything and leaving it just to be rubble. Right? These places that have all these pagan things. Um, and we we obviously can't do this. I actually knew a person um who knew people who kind of encouraged people to go out and like just pillage Gentiles, right? And they would just go and just do stuff to Gentiles because they was just
That's what happened in the past. And they feel like
they was able, yeah.
Right.
And if we not looking at these law, statutes, and commandments and putting them in their right places, these are the types of things that we come up with. Now, when we look and understand what it is that Paul talks about when he talks about the letter and the spirit of the law, we have to have an understanding as to what that means. When we think about the idea of being under the old covenant as opposed to being under the new covenant, we have to be able to understand what these things mean. Um, you know, and above that, this is specifically dealing with going into the land, right? This ain't our land. So, these things, this specifically doesn't apply here. But what underlying principles can we look at this and gain though? When we look at this, how can we make Deuteronomy 12, 1 through 4 something that's real in our lives right now? That's the question that we have to ask ourselves, right? Because there's something that we can look at this and gain from now, right? Even though we don't have our own land, even though we're not, putting armies together and going and dispossessing people out of their place and taking over.
We could do this in our own homes. Take that picture of Jesus off the wall.
Yeah.
Tear down them Christmas trees.
That's right.
Just do things like that are, basically altars and pillars and images, the crosses that, we wear around our neck.
Mm.
The star we wear on our finger is a ring. Things like that.
I think that I think this is something that we must do, right? We must do these things, right? There's no commandment that's describing what you're talking about, right? But we look at this right here, and the underlying principle of this right here is dealing with removing those things which are contrary to Yahweh from your space, the space that you preside over. You may not have you might not be talking about a city or a country or whatever, but you got like a lot of land, right? I think mine's is 30 by 100. Other people got bigger ones or smaller ones. But it's up to me to do these things. And you're able to do it. These things are able to be done. right? So we see the underlying principle is removing these things from destroying these things, right? If you came and bought yourself a plot of land, and that plot of land had like how these people went up and went to these places where literal idols was a bigger part of society.
Right.
It's easy to be able to think about it in that regard, but we live in a time where idolatry is a lot different, I would say.
Yeah.
You're not always dealing with things or trinkets or statues or what have you. um there's other things, right? But they don't even have to be physical things. They can be thoughts or ideas that are idols, right? The idea here is removing these things that can connect us to um these false mighty ones, right? These false gods. um
Right.
some of these things, when you look at it, it's just like are kind of like natural things. Or they would go into these groves, right? These little areas where trees were, and that would be like just a natural place, like not even like something that was built, like but just literally like a um kind of like a forest type area where they would just deal with like I don't know what they did exactly, but I'm saying it wasn't necessarily about something that was built and formed into an image,
Right.
but just kind of like a natural place that they was going and just doing these things unto these false deities. And again, that would just be dealing with things that ideas and concepts. So when we think about kind of removal of um, you know when people are removed from mainstream Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
and all the things that are inside of the doctrines and the teachings of what we know of as mainstream Christianity. When we transition away from that into a more authentic version of the faith in Yeshua. One of the things that we have to be able to do is kind of take a inventory of the doctrines, because we don't think about a lot of the things that are put into um, this thing that we know of as Christianity. And this and when you get into these type of things, these things are like the main hangups that people have. All of these things that people do because of the fact that they've been done for however long they've been done. When you're not able to connect these things to the actual scriptures, that's a problem. But again, when we think about, well, it's hard for people to understand when they're not even thinking about things from a Torah based mind frame in the beginning, because when you don't have the foundation, you can celebrate, say, Christmas, as a mainstream Christian, and say, well, I know that there's the people celebrated pagan had pagan customs and did it the exact same way I'm doing Christmas, but I'm doing it to Jesus.
Right.
So that don't apply to me, right? Because they're just looking at the thing from this quote unquote New Testament thought process, and don't have the foundation of Torah. That when you look at it from a Torah perspective, it's totally obvious. He don't want that intermixture in his worship. But when you don't have that foundation, you don't even get the connection. Like it's not wrong with me having a tree if I'm not worshiping gods. I just got a tree. Like,
I don't care nothing about us worshiping Christmas. You're going overboard.
Yeah, you're taking it too far. Like, but the thing that's missing is what? Is this foundation that lets us know it's plainly spelled out for us. Right? The first thing that they was to do when they went into these lands was to remove all of the remnants. Is just something that just made you think about what they used to do. They was getting rid of it. If it just even looked like something that you was getting rid of it. Like, but just that thought process is just like, it's totally, there's a disconnect. For that very reason that the foundation of Torah is not present.
And it's also their attachment to the world. These things that people practice, these practices are worldly, and they're gratifications of the flesh, and it's that not wanting to basically be separate from the world and the lust and the pleasures thereof.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's keep going here. Let's jump down to, because we got a couple of chapters we didn't get through. Let's jump down to verse 12. I thought this was interesting here. Let's look at 12. Let's look at 12 through 15.
Okay. And you shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim, you and your sons and your daughters, and your male servants and your female servants, and a new wife who is with your gates, since he has no portion nor inheritance with you. Guard yourself that you do not offer your sending offerings in every place that you see, except in the place where Yahweh chooses. In one of your tribes, there you are to offer your ascending offerings, and there you are to do all that I command you. Only whatever your being desires, you shall slaughter and eat, according to the blessing of Yahweh your Elohim, which he has given you. With all your gates, the unclean and the clean do eat of it, of the gazelle and the deer alike.
Okay, so what do we think he's talking about right here when he talks in verse 15? However, you may slaughter and eat meat within any of your gates, whatever you desire, according to the blessing of Yahweh your Elohim, which he has given you. The unclean and the clean may eat of it, as of the gazelle and the deer. What do you think that's referring to there?
It's interesting.
All right. Well, I think the right words are perplexing you.
Yeah, they are.
So that's good. So at least you're thinking about what I'm thinking about, right?
Thinking the same thing. Thinking about the medical dietary laws. Read that.
I think the thing that we
So we can eat pork.
That don't mean what you need.
I just swear I'm switching versions on that. I gotta pull out my little preset there. I gotta check on that.
Yeah.
Translations are real crafty, aren't they?
Yeah. I think here the focus is not on what is being eaten, but who is doing the eating.
Oh, the unclean and the clean do eat it. I mean, the people that are partaking in such stuff.
Right. So it's not talking about the thing that's being eaten. It's not talking about eating unclean food. It's talking about being clean or unclean and eating food.
Oh.
Because what it's really talking about is dealing with 14. Look at 14.
Ah, yes. Okay.
I agree with that.
Yes.
Except in the place of 13, guard yourself that you do not offer your offerings in every place that you see,
Right.
except in the place which Yahweh chooses. In one of your tribes, you are to offer your sinning offerings, and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to find a verse. Let's see. I think it's Leviticus. Let me make sure. Yeah, 17. Look at Leviticus 17, 3 through 6. Leviticus 17, 3 through 6. I remember before I was talking about amendments. I think we're saying an amendment here in the scriptures here. Leviticus, any man from the house of Israel who slays a bull or a lamb or goat in the camp, or who slays it outside the camp, and does not bring it to the door of the tent of appointment to bring an offering to Yahweh before the dwelling place of Yahweh, blood guilt is reckoned to that man. He has shed blood, and that man shall be cut off from among his people, in order that the children of Israel bring their slaughterings, which they slaughter in the open field, and they bring them to Yahweh at the door of the tent of appointment to the priests, and slaughter them as slaughterings of peace offerings to Yahweh. And then the priest shall sprinkle the blood of the slaughtering place at the door of appointment, and shall burn the fat of sweet aroma, so on and so forth. So there we see, if you was to kill, so here is telling you about you killing a lamb or a goat or a bull in the camp or outside the camp. If you're outside of the camp, you would have to bring that food, you have to bring that in. That food offering had to come in, and that blood be sprinkled on the thing of the tent at the tent of meeting there. So when we look over in Deuteronomy, it's talking about you just eating the food where you're at. It's not as if you got to take something and kill it, and then but you're way out there, and now I got to get that food back over to the tent of meeting and offer an offering from it unto Yahweh. So like it mentions the deer and the and the gazelle
and the heart.
Yeah, that's what your version says, right? So they just run around free. They don't have like like dens or anything. They just run around. They eat where they are, and then they just keep on going. Right. So when you talk about these people who are now they're going into this land, are going to be spread out. Every time they kill something, whoever was like the northernmost tribe didn't have to get his food down to where the temple was to offer an offering every time he wanted to kill something and eat it. Right. So it just had to do with now you wasn't able to make an offering unto Yahweh up there, but you didn't have to bring a part of your food that you was going to eat back to the to where the temple was going to be at. So it wasn't, and then again it mentions both the clean and the unclean. So if you was unclean, you wasn't able to come back anyway. So again, it wasn't just the way it's worded. It's not giving. Not saying it,
Can't eat pork.
No, you still can't eat pork. No.
Eggs, no.
Goodness, man.
Yeah, it's definitely in reference to the individual and not what he's actually eating.
I'd be sick if I eat pork.
People used to talk about how good bacon smells, but
Oh my goodness! I mean, it used to be. I can remember it used to be so delicious, but now when it's cooked, oh my goodness, it smells so bad.
So bad.
I remember having to back in my restaurant days, I remember having to cook like pans and pans of bacon. And to me, it just didn't smell good to me at all. Like it used to.
Did you ever eat it?
Nah,
Exactly.
I didn't ever eat bacon.
Yes. So if you grew up eating bacon
it probably smelled good. Yeah.
You get.
Now I must say,
Get enough.
I did eat pepperoni. Like I didn't eat pork my whole life, but when I had pizza, I had pepperoni on it for a long time. Probably like into my teens.
That was good. What?
Yeah, pepperoni. I did used to tear that junk up.
Good in the sense of goodness, but I mean it used to taste.
It's weird because I didn't eat pork at all. Like we used to get like turkey ham, like lunch meat, but we got pepperoni on that pizza.
Yeah, right.
You don't know about turkey ham?
Turkey ham.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird, but whatever.
It's good now.
Yeah. Is it ham?
I can't.
It's turkey.
It's turkey.
It's weird.
It's all turkey, but it's smoked. Yeah.
It's like a ham.
Cook it the way a ham is. Oh, so okay, yeah, because I think
Cut it like a ham. Like
it looked like ham. It's pink like ham.
I was with some Israelites. She brought this plate out. Like this is the first time I had it. I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
She's like, "We don't eat no pork. That's turkey." I'm like,
Yeah.
It was good.
Oh shit.
All right, let's drop down to 20. 28. Yeah, take them in there.
You want me to hold it?
Deuteronomy 12. 28 through 32. Look at 28. Chapter 12, verse 28 down through 32.
Right.
Yeah.
Guard and obey all these words which I command you, that it might be well with you and your children after you forever, when you do what is good and right in the eyes of Yahweh your Elohim. When Yahweh your Elohim does cut off from before you the nations which you go to disposes, and you dispose them and dwell in their land. Guard yourself that you are not ensnared to follow them after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire about their mighty ones, saying, how did these nations serve their mighty ones? And let me do so too. Do not do so to Yahweh your Elohim, for every abomination which Yahweh hates, they have done to their mighty ones. For they even burn their sons and daughters in the fire to their mighty ones. All the words I'm commanding you, guard to do it. Do not add to it, nor take away from it.
Okay, so again, we see where he comes back to this idea of removing idolatry from the place where you are. When we look at this, not only the fact that the Most High brings it up so many times, but also the fact that this is probably one of the main things that we see is like a problem of Israel to begin with. That, it don't matter that the Most High sits up here and says, don't sit up here and wonder about these false gods and try to do these things. We still just went ahead and did these things anyway, right? We always seem to be fascinated by these ways that these other people were living, and we always found a way to get into these abominable practices, regardless of the fact that the Most High forewarned us about these things. And it's hard to even understand how these things even happen if the people really did go in and annihilate all of these idols and things in these places when they went. It seems like how do you even get back to doing the things if they wasn't there in the first place? Did they even really go in there and do that?
Leaving some of that stuff behind.
So again, it just causes me to think about, the level at which we have to be in terms of removing these things that are contrary to Yahweh out of our lives. Right when the Most High, again, this is like his main gripe with us, is that we have, that we develop these practices that are derived from these pagan practices, regardless of how wicked they are, right? They even burn their sons and daughters to their mighty ones. And Israel thought that, doing things that resemble that was something that should be done. It's kind of hard to fathom. It's hard to believe. Like, I don't understand it. But that's what they did. Like, I don't understand it. I don't get it. Like, I can't even understand how you could ever think something like that would be something that you would want to do, is offering up your own children unto idols.
I'm thinking just back then, how we got normal stuff today. Like, you got the homosexuality that they're normalizing, and all these different forms of wickedness. It was probably so much around, around that they was used to seeing it. It's like the Most High had the people go in and destroy these other peoples that were doing these wicked things, but we're the only ones that received the right way to do the things that pleased the Most High. So there was really no example for us to look at. And so even though we told it, and we always go into the spiritual aspect, it's like we carnally just take in things, and our people are real persuasive, especially if another mass group of people are doing something. And I'm just imagining, okay, the Most High was like, all right, go in here, y'all. I was like, destroy all this, and then you get in there, and it's all this elaborate stuff, and you're like, wow, like look at what you marvel at it, and it's like, it's already set up, but you're gonna go destroy it. But it's like their minds is not fully there to understand why they're doing what they're doing, and I guess take it as serious as they need to understand, that we're being put in the Most High put us in a position to be His people, or to be an example of light. It's like I feel like we didn't understand that. It's like understanding your role or position. Like a celebrity will get big. Maybe they do some kind of wickedness, and then later down in their career, they see the wickedness that they may have caused, or the persuasion, it was negative. But later on, they might realize it or something. And I feel like in a spiritual sense, especially with history being able to take place, and us being able to read the beginning of our people and to get these things. And later back, now we looking at the commandments, and then we see the results all the way up to this point. It's like we can reflect a little bit better too, having that, looking at it more in the spiritual aspect.
We have an advantage where we're able to look and see the missteps.
Right.
And be able to make adjustments where, they didn't have that.
Right.
They didn't have nothing to balance the things off of. I see that, but I'm still trying to figure out, like, what gotta happen for somebody to tell me that I need to take my little hiskey and burn them up unto some God.
Well,
Ain't that the truth?
With the burning thing, I can't tell you. But I mean, it's almost like, John touched on it a little bit, like with the homosexual movement, right? You have parents now today who have bought in so much. You had normal heterosexual couples who are refusing to name their child a boy or a girl's name because they don't want to, they don't know what he's going to choose.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these who are in a normal relationship and having a baby, and now going to put this baby through all this confusion.
Mm-hmm.
So they're basically basing their decisions as parents on their newborn baby's life based on the culture, the demonic culture that's, being taught today. So, I can see how people could burn their kids because that's just like burning their kids.
Well, I mean, from that perspective, I can see how this is realized in our world today.
Mm-hmm.
It's not literal fire, but it's kind of the equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
When you totally destroying these human beings, and allowing these demonic culture that we're living in to be the thing that shapes and molds it.
I'll give you another illustration.
Mm-hmm.
So you got this whole population control thing going on in the world where they're saying, oh, we got to eliminate so many people so that the rest of the earth can live and be in harmony. So it's like, we got to kill these people and these babies, these unwanted, these undesirable people, just so everybody else can live. That's sacrificing people. I mean, Prince Charles just said, they gotta really get ahead of the population control in Africa because we want to preserve the wildlife in Africa.
Yeah.
So he's talking about killing people to preserve the wildlife in Africa.
So bad.
And I think that thing I say something, it's like only 15% of the land in the world people live in. There's like 85% free land that people can live in the world. And they talking about overpopulation and all that.
Right.
It's crazy. Oh, another example, piggyback, kind of thrown off what she was saying. Lammy backing.
You said what back here? Oh, not piggyback.
Not
Lamb
Lammy backing. You know what I'm saying? But how with abortion, they'll say, "Oh, a child's not a child," and a woman got a choice if they want to kill that child. And so maybe, depending on the cultures around them, a child come out, they'll be like, "It's not a person if it can't talk,
right,
or make decisions." You got, they desensitize and come up with their own explanation for life.
Yeah, basically they create these stocks, the stock pattern, and make it acceptable. And then now you have people aborting their babies, killing off people. All of these different ideas is just like burning their babies to the other gods.
Yep. Right.
I think that, yes, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying. I think that when we look at this, again, when you think about the idea of idols not necessarily having to be image, it's not like a statue, but it's like a thought. It's an idea that you're placing before the Almighty.
Right.
And you're going along with this idea, and that idea is the thing that you're submitting your mind to. And so, we're not literally doing it. They're like even more diabolical now than before, where they're making you do this thing and you kind of not even think about it. They brought this thing of abortion and made it seem like it's like a medical procedure that you're doing, like it's like you're getting some cancer or something out of you,
right,
when it's like a human life. And they made it seem like it's just this light thing that's going on, where you're literally burning your baby onto this idea that was diabolical in and of itself.
Answer me this: do you think that there were over 40 million babies being offered up into the fire a year back in those days?
I don't even know 40 million. I would just say no, probably not.
Exactly. And that's how many just black babies are being aborted a year. 40 million in America are being aborted a year. Just the black babies.
And you can find women that be like, "Oh yeah, I have 5 abortions." Just one woman.
So this is what's going on now is like even
worse.
Greater and worse than,
even though it's not blatant, like you sitting up there and taking a live baby.
Right.
I think I still would say that I think it's worse.
Right. And
because of the magnitude of it.
Thanks.
They had something too, of some article, I don't know if it was satire or real, but they was talking about a post-birth abortion.
Post-birth abortion.
Like the baby up to 3 months old, if you wanted to kill it, was
like after it was born.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, let me look it up. But yeah.
Wow.
So I'm telling you, it's ridiculous out here.
I mean, I know about Margaret Slinger and her plans for genocide of all people. But she made a statement saying the best way to kill a black person is before they was born. Then they came up with this birth control pill, gave them out in the 70s, which made our sisters sterile. That was their plan. You know, and many of them today run to this Plan B pill and go get birth control pills without knowing the actual cause of it being created.
Right now in Europe, their number one agenda, they said, is to find a way to stop African women from having so many babies.
Right.
They said the African women are having so many babies in Europe right now. It's like the number one crisis.
Wow.
Crisis.
Yeah.
That's a crisis.
Yeah. And they had one story where they said one woman in Africa from Uganda had 44 babies.
What?
44 babies. There's no other, I mean, we're the most fertile people on the planet, and they know that, and that has always been the plan.
Yeah.
Now that thing is like, they trying to get ahead of that, and we are buying into that.
Yeah, I did a post about Margaret Springer too and her plan. Yeah, and they cover it up with so-called Planned Parenthood. When it's all have to revolve in eugenics. That was their plan, to rid us off the earth. Now you got cops killing us. You got them trying to do it and justify it.
So again, when you look at these things, again, when we look at these things and see that, yeah, maybe there's no fire involved, but the act is still taking place, right?
Yeah.
And so, and you know, whether it be something that you know, the end result, you know, still the same, whether it be something that's, you know, that's dealing with the same thing or not, you know, at the end of the day, you know, the Most High always, you know, is making a way to continue on the nation and to continue this people, right? When he gives these commands to teach to diligently teach your children, right? When he has in place a way to perpetually keep his people moving in a certain direction.
Right.
And then you go and deal with these other nations where the whole point of it is to cut off the generations.
Right.
Right. When you got these things, when you think about the way that they have this thing with the homosexuality and all these things,
yeah.
You know, all these things that, you know, at the end of the day, it stops generations.
Yep.
And, you know, you want to sit up here and make these things be like there's some normal thing, like it's, you know, you're perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with you to like boys as a boy. There's nothing wrong with you to like her.
Good, I got it, Joe. Let me finish.
There's nothing wrong with you to sit up here and as a girl to like other girls, like it's totally normal.
Yeah.
Right. They want to make all, and I've witnessed that too. That thing you talking about in terms of people planning on having children and naming them like these androgynous names that could be like, yeah. It's crazy.
Both blue and pink clothes.
It's crazy. It's craziness, right? But these are the things that we deal with, you know, in this place that we live.
Yeah.
And you know, we have to be able, as the people of Yahweh, to be able to literally eradicate these things from our plots of land.
I agree.
Where we are, right? We can't deal with people that's outside of our situation. But if you in my situation, you know, and it starts with the families. You can't just sit up here and be somebody who says you are a follower of the Most High,
Right.
and just allow for just anything to go on in your
Or
house.
condone it. You know, I had a conversation with this one girl that's a lesbian years ago. And she said, I don't believe in the Bible. I said, well, let's put the Bible to the side for a moment. You can use your common sense. Two males on the island cannot procreate and populate. Two females can't do it. Some things just do not exist.
Right.
Just, some things just
It's just
not
natural.
happening.
It just makes
It's
natural sense.
common sense. You know, but I've read also that I read a while ago before I went to prison that in the year 2030, 70% of the Hebrew men will be incarcerated, 30% of them will be dead, and there'll be no one left for the Hebrew woman but the oppressors. So they can choose them as their pickings. That's their plan. And I'm like, wow, it's amazing. And the way it's going, it seems like it's hitting that way. They're locking us up for everything. Some of us do deserve it, where some of us don't. Then they're creating all these chemicals and putting them in food that's supposed to induce the mentality of homosexuality.
I'm out of here.
You know? So their plan is very obvious. They're trying to get rid of us as they always have been.
Yeah.
I think it's like Tom said, you know, we need to make sure our house is in order.
Yeah.
You know, that was the problem with my house. My house was out of order, and, you know. And so that was what that was. But yeah, it's important that we, you know, we can't get on the mission of trying to change the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We had to change ourselves and then others who would, you know, cling to us. But we can't like try to make an assault on the homosexual movement. Like that's not our job to like stop homosexual movement. You know what I'm saying? Or stop the abortion. We got to get the person that's going to abort the child to change and to come back to the creator. We can't say, no, we need to do away with abortion. No, we need to reach the people who are trying to abort, who are trying to go into a homosexual lifestyle, all of these, you know, ways of the world.
Yeah. But we were kind of talking about this yesterday because that's a fight you can win.
Right.
You can't fight the system because the system, you ain't changing the system. But you can deal with individuals and get people out of the system. You can't change the system. The system is what it is.
You gotta get the remnant.
That's right.
Everybody can't go.
Right. And I think when you think about when you here, let me just pull the verse up. Where is that verse where Yeshua's when they're trying to say that he's casting out devils by Beelzebub?
Oh yeah, when they was
Somebody get that in their little searches.
All right, hold on. What are you saying, bro? The what?
Where Yeshua, the people was trying to say that Yeshua was casting out devils by Beelzebub.
By Beelzebub.
Mm-hmm.
I can't.
Is that Matthew?
Is that Matthew's 12:28?
Let's see if it is.
I'm trying to see, or it might be Luke 11:20.
Yes.
It is?
Matthew 12, 27 and 28 says,
Okay.
And if I by Beelzebub cast out devils, by whom do your children cast them out? Therefore, they shall be your judges. Verse 28. But if I cast out devils by the spirit of Elohim, the kingdom of Elohim is come unto you. That's the verse I was looking for. But if I cast out devils by the spirit of Elohim, then the kingdom of Elohim is come unto you. We experience the kingdom of Elohim when we manifest his spirit in the earth. And you really only do that just man to man. I'm saying human to human. I'm saying man to man on an individual basis. When you manifest the spirit of Yahweh, you are manifesting the kingdom of Elohim.
Right.
And the kingdom of Elohim really just grows just a person at a time.
Right.
And that's how you bring the kingdom of Elohim into fruition. It's just a individuals at a time. You're not gonna sit up here and change the whole situation.
Right.
It's not even gonna be. But you can change the individual. So when we think about how we look back at these verses, when we talk about this idea of going in and eradicating these idols and things, you know, yeah, we're not going in taking over nations, but in terms of individuals, you know, we can deal with individuals and point out to these people who we will deal with, and you know, showing them these things that are not of Yahweh and the importance that he puts on the eradication of those things that are against him. So we can look at what the Most High speaks about in terms of dispossessing land and think about dealing with people, individuals in that regard, in terms of showing people that when you come to the Father, you know, he has a way that he has for us to be, and he's not calling for us to be kind of this gray people, right, where we're mixed, like it's not this murky water, right? It's a living water that's alive and it's clear. It's not ambiguous, right? Okay, so let's go on to chapter 13.
Okay.
13 1 through 5. 13 1 through 5.
When there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and he shall give you a sign or wonder, and the sign or wonder shall come true, of which he has spoken to you, saying, let us go after other mighty ones, which you have not known, and serve them. Do not listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams. For Yahweh your Elohim is trying you to know whether you love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being. Walk after Yahweh your Elohim and fear him and guard his commandments and obey his voice and serve him and cling to him. And that prophet or that dreamer of dreams is put to death because he has spoken apostasy against Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Misraim, Egypt, and ransomed you from the house of bondage, to make you stray from the way in which Yahweh your Elohim commanded you to walk. Thus shall purge you the evil from your midst.
Okay. So it talks about this prophet, right? We can't look at these so-called prophets and dreamers of dreams, right? Because look what he says. If the prophet or dreamer of dreams gives you a sign and a wonder, and the sign of wonder comes true, the thing that he's doing is coming to pass. But he says, let us go after other gods whom you have not known, and let us serve them. He's saying, don't listen to this person. right? We can look and let the determining factor, well, this person had this prophecy over my life and it came to pass. It really happened exactly just like he said it was gonna happen. I'm followed after this person. He really hears from the Most High. He told me exactly what it was gonna be, what it looked like, what color shirt the person was gonna have on. Everything that he said, word for word, came to pass.
Prophet of the Most
Right. So it don't matter what type of miracles or things that these people was able to manifest if they're saying, let us go after other gods whom you have not known and let us serve them. Right? The qualifier isn't if this person's able to do miraculous things. That's not the qualifier. The qualifier is who you gonna serve. When you think about this image, you think about this image that is propagated of this, the image that they're passing off as the son of Elohim, and not only the image but the teachings.
Mm-hmm.
According to the scriptures, the way that Messiah is preached in the mainstream Christian church,
right,
it disqualifies him as being Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand how they can preach it. I mean, they say he did away with the law, and it clearly says he didn't come to do away with the law. It just don't make any sense.
Don't make any
I
sense.
guess I don't.
It doesn't make any sense to you because you're thinking about things from a Torah-based foundation.
Well, no, if you just read it, the New Testament.
Well, it's hard. It's hard. I mean, we're not talking. If all you have is the New Testament, if all you have is one of those New Testament Bibles, they got the New Testament and they got the Psalms and the Proverbs. If you got a Bible like that, and that's all you've ever read, and you don't have that Torah foundation, it's not hard to see how they come up with these things. Now it's hard. It is hard to see when you because again, when I think about grace, this idea of grace from a New Testament perspective, he's just so loving. He just pours out his love just all on me, and there's nothing that I'm able to do to cause for this love not to be on me anymore. Right? When you have this false idea of what they're calling this grace thing, and you don't have a context, you don't have a Torah-based foundation, I understand where Christianity is. I understand where it is, and I understand why it's there. And it's because you don't have the foundation in the Torah. And looking at these verses here is a perfect example. If you understood the fact that we see right here in Deuteronomy where it talks about this prophet, this dreamer of dreams, the fact that he performs miracles don't matter if he's pulling you away from the Most High.
Right.
And that's the exact thing that this representation of the Son of Elohim that we have in mainstream Christianity is doing, because it's saying it don't matter about the character of Yahweh. It don't matter about all of these these ideas and concepts that the Most High put forth that manifest his own character. Forget about all of that. We got this new thing. We got this new thing that, go ahead, right there. We got this new thing that we have that supersedes all of that and causes you to just to be able to forget about it.
Right.
So they could take things like what you mentioned in Matthew chapter 5 and 18 and 19, and in spite of the fact that he said that I did not come to do away with the prophets or the commandments, but to fulfill them. Even though he says that, even though he literally says that in the New Testament, you're able to look at that with your New Testament thought process and your New Testament eye and make it mean something that fits inside of your New Testament thought process. When he was up on the torture stake, he said it is finished. That means he did everything right there.
For me too. I don't gotta do nothing.
Right, because he did it for me.
Yeah.
I don't know what verse that is, but you go to 10 people, 9 of them gonna say that what you just said. He did it for me, so I don't have to do
I
it.
don't gotta do nothing but believe.
Right, I know. And they say, like, you know,
There's a class somewhere where they run off these things. You know what I'm saying?
where the all fulfilled is what Jesus did. He did it all.
Yeah.
Jesus did it all. It's fulfilled. He did it all.
He said it's
believe
finished.
So I'm good.
He said it's finished.
I'm
You're
saved.
saved, even though you're still in tribulation.
I don't know what you talking about. I'm saved.
Because the save that Israel was looking forward to was them not being ruled over the
It
Gentiles.
says we're restoring the kingdom.
Restoring the kingdom.
That's what
Right.
they are.
Where they was going to be ruling. Now, I don't know what type of salvation they talking about.
Exactly. He did it all. I'm saved from anything.
Mhm. So again, here in Deuteronomy, we see something that is in direct opposition to this idea that the qualifier of being somebody who a prophet that you should follow is that he has to be someone that's moving towards Yahweh, not away from. And in fact, if he is somebody who is pulling you away from the Almighty, you're supposed to kill him.
Hold on, man. How is all fulfilled though? I mean, what about justice? Isn't God just? So
Pretty just.
if it's all fulfilled, then there's no justice. You know what I mean? Like all the saints who are crying out, they don't get when they're crying out for when is the blood going to be avenged.
You're gonna get your
justice.
justice in the new kingdom.
I don't know here Christians really go to Revelation.
But I'm just saying, like judgment, like that's when all is fulfilled. When you know,
He said it's finished.
his part.
No, everything's finished. It's fulfilled. It's done. He did it for you.
He's like, close the book. You don't got nothing. Just believe it.
Even though he came back to the disciples and was still telling them what to do. It's all finished? Why is he coming back to the disciples and trying to get them back on task?
Right.
Oh, it's all done.
Yeah.
So why you say the word the gospel got to be preached throughout the world?
Yeah.
Still, if it's all done, it's all done, right? Don't make no sense. Why are you still preaching the gospel? Why are you still in the pulpit? It's all done.
Exactly.
But sorry.
Right. But I mean, but this is where we are though. This is where we are. And again, this don't mean nothing. This don't mean nothing to excuse me, a mainstream Christian person. That's the old covenant. That's the old covenant. So it don't even, you know what I mean? But again, when we understand, and it's so important to understand, when we understand what it is that the Spirit, when you look at Yeshua and he came, his whole purpose for coming was so that the Spirit could be poured out. Like that was his whole. That was his whole point. That was his whole task. And everything that he did as a man was so that the Spirit could come. If we could get to that, if we can understand that, then you halfway there. Then now all you gotta do is figure out what it is that the Spirit is doing there. Well, the Spirit ain't doing nothing but causing me to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. Well, then how's it done away with then? Well, we got this other thing going on. Well, the Spirit came so that I could do the Holy Ghost dance, and so I could do all of this. I saw this. I've been seeing this thing. This young guy with these weird looking eyes, is calling himself a prophet. He was standing on stage, and he was doing. I seen it scrolling through Facebook. He was standing on stage, like he was doing the little Holy Ghost dance by himself on stage, and you couldn't see the people that was off the stage, but you could just see money falling on the stage. Like they're throwing money on the stage while he was dancing on it.
Yeah.
You seen that?
Mm-hmm.
I ain't saying that nonsense.
I mean, if you take him away,
if
you took him away and put a pole in the middle of the lady there, it would be the same picture. But this guy's like, he calls himself like a prophet though.
Yeah, he's real young too. Yeah.
Man, I'm gonna get that video. I'm gonna add the poll.
This is where we at. And these is people who sitting up there and calling themselves prophets, and people sitting up their phone. And he's literally causing you to sit up here and follow after other gods. In this case, I'm saying that is him. It's him and that false image. It's two gods that he's sitting up here and causing you to follow. And all we got to do is just look back into the foundation, and it sits up there and tells us it don't matter what this person's saying or what kind of miracles he's manifesting.
Yeah, when did any prophet dance on like coins? When did that happen? When did they say that any?
The thing about it is he's not doing anything that looks anything like holiness. In fact, it looks exactly like the complete opposite of holiness. And this is what these people's found. Meanwhile, verse 4 says, you shall follow Yahweh your Elohim. And this is just like what we seen back in the other chapter we was looking at in chapter 10. We got this list again: to fear Yahweh, to keep his commandments, to listen to his voice, to serve him and cling to him. And you sitting up here following these people that's causing you, that's pulling you away from all of those things.
I understand more and more why only a remnant.
Let's look over at I want to look at Jeremiah 23. So what did I see in there? Something interesting. I'm gonna get back to Deuteronomy. I'm gonna look at Jeremiah. '23.
Oh yeah.
Starts with whoa.
Shepherds that scatter the flock.
Shabbat shalom and see you
I
later.
didn't see you.
Oh.
Okay, somebody read 9. I want to look at 9 down to 22.
9 down to 22. My heart within me is broken because of the prophets. All my bones shake. I am like a drunken man and like a man overcome by wine because of Yahweh and because of his set apart words. For the land is filled with adulterers. For the land mourns because of a curse. The pasture of the wilderness are dried up, and their course evil, and their might is not right. For both prophet and priest have become defiled. Even in my house I have found their evil, declares Yahweh. Therefore, their ways is to them like slippery ways in the dark. They are driven out on, and they shall fall in them. For I bring evil on them, the year of their punishment, declares Yahweh. And I have seen folly in the prophets of Sharon. They prophesied by Baal and led my people Israel astray. And among the prophets of Jerusalem, I have seen a horrible matter, committing adultery and walking in falsehood. And they straighten the hands of evil ones, so that no one turns back from his evil. All of them are like Sodom to me, and her inhabitants like Amor. Therefore, thus says Yahweh of hosts, concerning the prophets, see, I am making them eat wormwood, and shall make them drink poisoned water. For defilement has gone out into all the land from the prophets of Jerusalem. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, do not listen to the words of the prophets who prophesy to you. They lead you astray. They speak a vision of their own heart, not from the mouth of Yahweh. They keep on saying to those who despise me, Yahweh has said, you shall have peace. And to all who walk according to the stubbornness of their own heart, they say, no evil come upon us or you. For who has stood in the counsel of Yahweh and has seen and heard his word? Who has listened to his word and obeyed it? See, a storm of Yahweh shall go forth from the rage, whirling storm. It whirls on the head of the wrong. The displeasure of Yahweh shall not turn back until he has done and established the purpose of his heart. In the later days you shall understand it. I did not send these prophets, yet they ran. I have not spoken to them, yet they prophesied. But if they had stood in my counsel, then they would have let my people hear my words, and they would have turned them from evil way and from the evil of their deeds. Hallelujah.
So there has to be a connection again between these people who are saying that they are one thing, and connecting that with what that looks like, right? This walk and this faith is not about you saying anything necessarily. It's about what it looks like. If I'm sitting up here saying that I'm this person that I had just seen, that I've been seeing over the last couple months, kind of just popped out of nowhere, and every time I see him, he's sitting on there talking about sending him some money, looking like he's like a 90s R&B singer or something like that. It's absolutely crazy, right? Who's he turning from wickedness? What righteousness is he turning people to? And not just him, that goes for a whole bunch of these people out here. That's what the Most High is looking for you to turn from your wickedness.
That's right.
What's interesting to me is how how they using the Bible for all of this. Like, I guess through history, I guess it's been pushed, but it's like when we read different parts, it's like only now. I mean, I guess because we got it that this is being used as like the primary thing to twist. I feel like, and I'm not looking for it, probably exists, but in Islam or Buddhism or they ain't twisting it and taking that and going crazy with it and coming up with all these stuff to deceive people.
Mhm.
I can tell you easily, like from the scripture we just wrote, right? I could say, for who stood in the counsel of the Lord and hath perceived his heart and hath perceived and heard his word. See, this is the word of the Lord. And I could talk about all different types of stuff. Now, this ain't got, like, if he read this whole scripture,
Go ahead.
you know what I'm saying? He would condemn everything he said, but he going to read a piece of it, and he going to stop there and tell you what the word of the Lord is. Not the word that it's going to say right here. He going to tell you what his word of the Lord is. That's how they do it.
It is versatile. Like
They take a little piece. That wasn't even a whole verse.
Yeah, they take one scripture and then make a story behind it.
Yeah, I haven't really seen.
And they get to talking about money.
Yeah. The ones who heard the verse of the Lord are those who give, who tithe. Lay this money down and let me dance on it.
Yeah. They a trip, man.
Yeah, it's the perfect thing to
That's
do
how
that
they
way.
do it.
So and the problem is it's not a new problem, right? The very reason why we even have a book in our hands that we're able to read is because people got together and was like the lay people need to be able to look at the Bible. They need to be able to read it and understand what it's actually saying, and not the only thing that they ever hear be what the guy sitting up there telling you,
them, right?
You know, in the services, right?
That's why I tell them you got to be careful who you give your ear to, because it's a pathway that leads to the heart that's already deceitful. And if you hear that lie repeatedly, you may be convinced to embrace it as truth. You know, which is why, like, for instance, the brother that was exposed on Facebook, trying to tell everybody that the transatlantic slave trade, it had nothing to do with Deuteronomy 28, and that we keep wanting to be under the curse, but under the new covenant there is no curse. So he's starting to do all this twisted scripture preaching. Now, mind you, he was on point for a while ago, but like the Bible informs us, you know, they will have itchy ears and be led astray by demonic spirits, and all that's happening in this prophecy. And I see y'all bashing him, brother, but y'all got to remember this is prophecy. It's going to happen. So all we can do is pray for that brother.
It's imperative. It's imperative that people actually know what the scripture says.
Right.
And when you could get a bunch of people who don't know what it says, they could be like what you just was sitting up and talking about, and where somebody could literally say anything, and all they gotta do is read a couple verses first.
I done been in churches, even when I was in the church,
Mhm.
Right.
where a preacher be on the pulpit saying some nonsense. I got up and walked out.
Hey, I got it.
I'm like, what is this? And I was a Christian at the time. I was like, I don't know, but I was a Bible reading Christian.
Right.
That's the difference, though.
That was a difference.
And I was like, he was talking about like walking around a Mercedes Benz and claiming it.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, like, you know what I mean? Just like they did in Jericho. They walked around 7 times. And I was like, I said, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
Well, I mean, that is not. I mean, it don't seem like you gotta even be a Bible reading person.
Everybody was in there, amen, and though.
They probably start dancing as soon as you left.
I went to a congregation on Trent Street in the Hill District. One of my friends, Michelle Felder, took me there and invited me, and her mom was there. And I was hearing some nonsense stuff, and I seen them throwing water, and they looked just like the fake Jews, but the only thing, they were black. So, man, I just stood up, man. I was so upset. I just stood up and just started shouting, how could you mislead your people, man? I started quoting scriptures and telling them it's errors. Of course, they kicked me out. But before I did, a couple people came out after they did that and told me, brother, we have waiting for somebody to stand up to him. So I'm like, wow. Sometimes it takes somebody to give you courage to do something that they felt to do. And I understood that. They asked me to come back. I said no. My spirit said no. So I'm not. That just goes to show you, man. The Bible tells you, study to show yourself approved. A workman that needs not to be ashamed, but rightly dividing the word of truth. And that's what people miss out on. They don't want to study. You only get out of this what you put into it. So you got to do some hard research.
It's laziness.
Laziness.
Yeah.
You already said if you want to have something from a Negro, put it in the book. Then when I post videos, they act like they don't want to look at them.
Yeah, but it's not only just laziness too. The preacher makes them feel good. He basically comforts them in their mess.
Right.
So they got itchy ears. He's scratching.
He's scratching the heck out of
it. And so they're feeling comfortable going about their day-to-day American life or wherever their life is, feeling comfortable in wickedness.
Right. And it's okay to do everything Monday through Saturday and go to church on a Sunday worship day and ask y'all to forgive you or ask God to forgive you. And then listen to the words of what the pastor says. He'll take one scripture, one verse, and make a whole sermon out of it, make it sound good, and send you home with a happy feeling without even warning you about any sin.
Man, sin. Jesus did it all. He took it all away. I ain't got to worry about it.
Yeah, that's what they think. Yeah.
All right, let's go back. Let's go back to Deuteronomy. Let's go back over there because we see some more of this. Continue along the same vein. We look at still in chapter 13, 6 through 11.
Okay. When your brother, the son of your mother, or your son, or your daughter, or the wife of your bosom, and your friend, who is as your own being, entices you secretly, saying, let us go and serve other mighty ones, which you have not known, neither you nor your fathers, of the mighty ones of the people which are all around you, near to you or far from you, from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth. Do not agree with them or listen to him, nor shall your eye pardon him, nor spare him or conceal him. But you shall certainly kill him.
Oh, man,
your hand is fist against him to put him to death, and afterwards the hand of all the people. And you shall stone him with stones until he dies, because he sought to entice you away from Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mizraim, Egypt, from the house of bondage. And let all Israel hear and fear, and not again do any such evil matter as this in your midst.
Okay, again, so we look at these verses like this. You dealing with a nation. You're dealing with a nation where they was able to execute judgment on people in the nation. And again, we don't have a nation, right? We're in exile. We're part of this other nation, right? I can't go and just go and kill this person who's sitting up here spewing some apostasy.
My wife, I just couldn't kill her.
No, you can't. But at the same time, there has to be a way to be able to cause a separation, a distinction between those things which are upright and righteous and those things which are not. First of all, starting off with, these people who, are close to you. These people who may be your brother or your mother or your son or your daughter or your wife or your best friend, right? Who is as your own self, regardless of the closeness of your relationship with these individuals. When they cause you to go away from, not only to go away from the Almighty, but to go towards these other gods, they got to be dead to you, right? You obviously can't kill them.
Right.
Is that the people who try to cause you to go into your sin?
Yeah. Going away from Yahweh. Yeah, for us, it could be that. If you got these people that's around you, that every time that you around them, they trying to get you to do these things that's contrary to the Almighty in the nation, you taking that person and you killing them.
Oh, so basically, it ain't even gotta be like, let's turn away from the Most High. They could just be saying, "Come on, let's go commit a fornication."
Right.
But that is doing that though.
Yep.
So if you got this brother or this mother or this son or daughter or friend who their whole goal in life is to sit up here with you to go and do all these reprehensible things, then you got to separate yourself from this person. Because if you was in the nation, that person would be separated from life. And again, we can't take it to that extreme. But you could look at the underlying principle that's put forth by these verses and definitely be able to make a distinction and separation between you and these individuals as to where they did a thing to this person where he wasn't able to influence them or anybody around them anymore. Now you have boundaries as to how you're able to do that, but you got to be able to do it. By any means necessary.
Right.
And again, we're not talking about taking people out and stoning them with stones until they die.
Right.
But you making the separation with these people and removing their influence over you and other people. That is something that you're definitely able to do. We look at Matthew.
Matthew 7:15.
Yeah, read down to 27.
But beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are savage wolves. By their fruits you shall know them. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? So every good tree yields good fruit, but a rotten tree yields wicked fruit. A good tree is unable to yield wicked fruit, and a rotten tree to yield good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So then, by their fruits you shall know them. Not everyone who says to me, Master, Master, shall enter into the region of the heavens, but he who is doing the desire of my Father in the heavens. Many shall say to me in that day, Master, Master, have we not prophesied in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and done mighty works in your name? And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work lawlessness, or some says iniquity. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and does them shall be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain came down, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them shall be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain came down, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and they beat on that house, and it fell. And great it was, and it fell.
So just working this backwards, when you think about this idea of building your house on a rock, when you think about building your house on a solid foundation, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about building your house on a solid foundation. In our case, the solid foundation is the actual words of the Most High, is the Torah, right? When you do that, that rain gonna come, it's gonna beat down on the house, but the thing ain't gonna fall down because you got a solid foundation. It's built on something that's real, right? Not sand, right? So when you think about right, and he's comparing this what to doing the things that he's comparing this what to doing the things that he actually is saying to do. When you doing the things that Messiah said do, that's you building your house on a solid foundation. But he ain't telling them to do nothing but the scriptures. He's saying the same thing that we just read over in Deuteronomy when he talks about these people here who did all of these things. Don't matter that they did these miracles, that they prophesied and the things came true, that they did things in his name and cast out demons and did all these things. If they was causing the people to go away from the Almighty, he says, I never knew you, and calls them lawless or somebody who is a worker of iniquity. When we look at what the underlying principle of what Messiah is sitting up here talking about, is exactly the same as what we've seen in Deuteronomy 13, 1 through 5, where you're not looking at the miracles and things that's been done by these people. You're looking at their life and where they're taking you. You're looking at their fruit, right? You're looking at the fruits of their life. If the fruit is righteousness, it must be coming from a good tree. But if their fruit is wickedness, they obviously coming from a wicked tree, right? If they sending you towards the Messiah, if they're sending you towards the Almighty, if they're pointing you towards righteousness and holiness, that's that's the proof right there. But if where they're sending you towards is wickedness and unrighteousness, and there's no inkling of set apartness in their situation, he's making it plain. The fruits is the proof. By their fruits you shall know them. Right? You can't get grapes out of a thorn bush, and you can't get figs from a thistle. You can't get righteousness from the wicked.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you got these places who they have these thousands of people that busting the walls down, the filling the buildings to capacity every week, and ain't nobody saying nothing about righteousness. Don't matter how you live, don't matter. Just be here on Sunday and be encouraged for an hour while I talk to you. Oh, and you're gonna hear some and get excited about the praise team.
Yeah.
And the guy who probably got some gender issues himself, you know, leading the praise team. If we look back at Deuteronomy, it talks about purging the evil from among you. Nobody trying to purge the evil from among you. They trying to make everybody feel comfortable and at ease with these things that they doing.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Yeshua said, I didn't never know you. All that stuff you did was pointless because of your lawlessness. That's red letters in somebody's Bible.
Red letters.
Yeah, Yeshua said it.
Yeah.
All right, what is this here?
Well, we gotta keep no laws.
Right.
We don't got no laws. You lawless.
Right. So again, we think about the idea of people saying that you don't have to do anything. That's sand right there.
Yeah.
Because if I feel like I don't gotta do nothing, that's how I'm gonna live my life. And righteousness ain't gonna be the fruit of that. I don't gotta do nothing. I don't gotta be worry about righteousness. He's my righteousness.
That's right.
He gonna forgive everything I ever do. So I don't gotta worry about trying to do nothing. I can't try to match up my life to, you know, these standards that these people sit up here and create. Well, the standards is created by the Most High anyway, but you know, people sit up here and make it seem as if there's nothing that needs to be done by them. All they got to do is just believe that Messiah is.
But there's the opposite end of the spectrum is the Israelites that think just because you're black and you're Israelite, you don't have to do anything either.
I don't think that's the opposite end. I think it's in the same spot because if you still walking in unrighteousness, you in the same position.
Just say because I'm an Israelite, the Most High has no choice but to accept me.
Well, I don't know if they say that, but that's how they act.
I ain't scriptural.
I don't know if people saying that, but that's how they act. Because all you gotta do is just be black, and you there, you the people.
If you're the people, then
that's all you gotta know. But if you still lawless, you should then never know you. Them don't matter who your daddy was, he still ain't know you if you in iniquity. Either way, whether we talking about people who are telling you that you don't have to do anything, or they ain't telling you enough details in the situation, all they want you to do is to look at your DNA. Either way, you still in the same category. You still dealing with these false teachers who are sitting up here not give. If I ain't giving you the full story, I'm lying. If I'm just telling you a part of the story, I'm a lie. Yeah, you the people, but you are now responsible for living now a certain way according to the one who came and gave his life for you. It's not enough just to be. Israel. Just like it's not enough just to say, I believe in Messiah. Because I don't even know what that means, just to say, just to make that declaration that I believe in Messiah.
Right.
It's you basically in the same boat. If all I'm gonna say is yeah, all I gotta do is believe.
Devils believe in it too. They fear and tremble.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything that we do causes us to have action. Right? It's not enough for us to know a thing. It's not enough for us just to hear a thing. We have to act. That has to be manifest in our lives. So the same way we think about this idea of seeing, there has to be a experience that goes along with it. The same way we think about Shema and hearing, there has to be obedience that goes along with it. The fact that you know that I heard you because you actually, I'm telling you to come here. You could hear me saying come here, but if you just looking at me as I'm saying come here, you not shma'ing me. you just sit there looking at me. It ain't about audible sounds going into your ears. It's about the action that goes along with it. So it's easy for somebody to sit up here and have some type of realization of being the people, or if you just even say that you're a Christian.
Yeah.
If you're going to sit up there and say that you're a follower of the teachings of that person known as the Christ, that looks like something.
Right.
It's not just about me. I got somebody. Look, you trying to see what I'm. It's not just about a declaration, something coming out of your mouth. It looks like something. And this is what people got to understand. And there's a lot of people out here on all spectrums of the situation leading people astray. And the point of what we're looking at here back in Deuteronomy is, if these people not leading you towards the Almighty, then that evil needs to be purged from among you.
Mm-hmm.
And it don't matter. It don't matter. Here, look, let's look at this too. Let's look at what and something else Yeshua said. He said something else too in Luke. What is that? Luke 14. Luke 14, 25. 25 through 33.
And large crowds were going with him. And turning, he said to them, if anyone come to me and does not hate his father and mother and wife and children and brother and sister and his own life too, he is unable to be my top one. And whosoever does not bear his state and come after me is unable to be my top one. For who of you wishing to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid the foundation and is unable to finish it, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was able to finish. Or was sovereign going to fight against another sovereign, does not sit down first and take counsel whether he is able with 10,000s to meet him, or who comes against him with 20,000. And if not, while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks conditions of peace. So then every one of you who does not give up all that he has is unable to be my top one.
So first of all, he starts out talking about in terms of, again, just like we looked in those other verses, in terms of these people who are supposedly those that are close to you. If you not able to take, he literally says hate here, these people. you're not able to be his top one. If you're not able to totally put these people in a state of total disregard as regards to the things, the influence that these people is able to have over you, if you're not able to place Yeshua at the forefront of your situation and allow him to be the one who leads, guides, and directs your steps. If you're not able to do that, you're not able to be a disciple of Yeshua.
That's right.
And he's naming all of these people who, in your regular life, these are the people who you follow after: your father and your mother and your wife and your children and your brothers and your sister, or your own self, or your own life too.
Yeah.
There's no relationship. There's no earthly relationship, not even including your own self, that could be that can hold a higher status than Messiah.
Can you do me a favor and look up that Hebrew word, hate? People be taking
That's
word.
Greek there.
That Greek word. I mean, sorry.
Let's see what they said, what it is in the Greek.
People take it the wrong way. Oh, you want me to hate my mother who gave me birth? And hate 30.
Oh, wait a second.
Yeah.
Detest. Miseo. That's Greek. To detest. By extension, love less, hate, or hateful.
So in other words, he's telling us to love them less, love him more. Do not put them above him.
Well, it also says detest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does say detest, but we can't go with all the definitions. But there's a definition that actually sticks out to me, and that's like to love them more than him.
Well, I think that the thought,
and it also tells us to honor our mother and father.
I think that the thought here is about the persuasion, because he don't want us just to hate our father,
right? That's what I'm
and mother just for the sake of hating them,
right?
But we have to be willing to be able to hate our father and mother if our father and mother is going to pull us away from the Almighty. Because according to our foundation, if they was somebody who's trying to pull us away, then they need to be killed. So ain't no greater hate than killing somebody.
No greater hate. Yeah, you're right about that.
He's not doing nothing but talking to you about what the Torah is telling us.
Right. That is true.
So it's not just hate just for the sake of hating, because we have to honor our father and mother. That's the first commandment that got a promise attached to it.
Promise attached to it.
That's like my mom. She had off on Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's like, on the day I got off, I bought candy to give out and this, and that. She said only 2 people came past, and I commented on her. I said, praise the Most High, people waking up.
Yeah.
She got mad. She didn't respond back or nothing.
She was mad.
It was like, but that's a form of,
yeah.
I'm honored. I still honor my mom.
You still honor her, right?
Hey,
right.
I don't support none of her wickedness. And I'm like, hey, that's good. That's an example. Hey, you should learn from it too. Everybody else is, I'm like, people waking up. They ain't knowing
that is true.
Halloween.
That is true, because someone had asked me a question about pertaining to their salvation. And like, for instance, my grandfather was real staunch in the Bible. He the one who taught me about Jesus in the first place. But he was so staunch. He strived to live according to the word. So when they asked me this, I had to think about that. And I knew that Yahweh scattered us to the 4 corners of the earth, told us what we made to worship other gods of wood and stone. But he knew this would happen to us. But he also says he will bless those whom he will. So I thought about that. He also knows our hearts. So it was kind of hard for me to say that he went to hell. I said, who am I? I'm not Yahweh. I'm not Yah to say that. But he knows our hearts and intentions. But we also know that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So it's a thin line between that. But he also knows our hearts, is what I'm saying. And those that's professing Christianity are not really going according to the Bible. Because this same man did not partake in pagan Halloweens and all his traditions. He did not do that. He was seriously a Bible believer. And the only thing he did was say Jesus and God. Man, I wish I was able to say something to him, but I know his heart was pure because his actions spoke louder than words. You know what I mean? So I will say that, though. A lot of people claiming they love God and they love this Bible they reading, but they're not heeding to his warnings of what not to do. I can't wrap my head around that. How could you claim to love him or even fear him when you're doing these things? Obviously, it doesn't. But then again, they are calling on a nameless God. They don't even know his name. So I often wonder, what God are they actually serving? Continue, brother. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't know what I just did right here. I don't know how to go backwards. I just went off of the YouTube. I mean the Hangouts somehow.
You ain't live no more.
Strawberry platinum for
Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, so again, when we look at these things, we have to be able to understand what it is the Most High has always had for us. When we look at these things, the Most High always have for us to be people that walk in his character. And we can't separate the laws, statutes, and commandments from his character. They are examples of his character. So when we get to these thoughts and ideas that are bringing us away from the character of Yahweh,
right,
these are things that we have to separate ourselves from. These are things that are in direct opposition to the Almighty. Okay, so let's just real quick just go through a couple more things here as we get ready to be done here. We go over to
I be loving these studies, man. Really do.
14. So if we look at 14, chapter 14 goes over one. 1 through 1 and 2. Children of Yahweh, your Elohim, do not cut yourself nor shave the front of your head for the dead, for you are a set apart people to Yahweh, your Elohim, and Yahweh has chosen you to be a people for yourself, for himself, a treasured possession above all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. So again, he's mentioning these customs that are connected to pagan worship of these pagan deities. Where the people will sit up here and do to these things. I think when you look at this, cutting yourself nor shaving the front of your head for the dead. You know, doing these things for specific purposes. And again, their purposes are connected to these pagan peoples and the practices. So then it goes on in 14 to deal with eating foods, right? Do not eat what is abominable. It tells us what we could eat: ox, sheep, goat, deer, gazelle. Gazelles. I don't got many gazelles in where we live, right?
The land they trying to learn.
The roebuck, the wild goat, mountain goat, antelope, mountain sheep. All those things you can eat. And then beyond those things, verse 6, every beast that has a split hoof divided in two, chewing the cud among the beasts, those things you eat. But those things, but those chewing the cud or those having a split hoof completely divided, you do not eat, such as a camel, a hare, the rabbit, for they chew the cud, but they do not have a split hoof. They are unclean to you. And the pig is unclean to you because it has a split hoof, but it does not chew the cud. Right. You do not eat their flesh nor touch their dead carcasses. Right? So it goes through all of those things in terms of, you know, what we can eat and the little two qualifications: the split hoof and the chew the cud. It can't only chew the cud and don't have a split hoof, and it can't just have a split hoof and it don't chew the cud. It got to be able to do both of those things, right? In order to classify it as. Now, a lot of these things, when you look, are things that I'm saying that it gives you a list that's big enough, I would say, that in terms of the food that we would normally eat, you know, we're able to, in other words,
why it says specifically that you can't eat pigs, but why do Christians eat pigs anyway?
Oh, because if you're in the new covenant, I think, well, let's look and see what
the law's done away with. So
the law's done away with in general, but they'll bust out Mark chapter 7 on you with the quickness. They'll bust it out on you.
Something that Peter said.
No,
was it Peter who said that? Like when he said, "Arise and eat."
Well, they'll bust that out on you too, but Mark chapter 7 is something they'll bust out on you.
But we gotta understand that they already knew the laws back then, you know, so they already knew what to eat, what not to eat. So he's told them to rise and eat.
Right. You know? So again, what we have to first of all and always understand when we look at the scriptures is that the scriptures can't fight against themselves. Right? Yeshua is not going to sit up there and say something that's contrary to what the Torah said. And if he does do that, you're supposed to kill him. It disqualifies him from being who he says that he is. Because we just read that, right? In Deuteronomy 13.
But then they'll say, well, that's why the Pharisees were always trying to kill him.
I mean, they can say that. That's good, because that's what the scripture says. If he truly was Messiah, he cannot speak against the Torah. That's true. He can't speak against it. It's one thing to look at what he did, because when we look at where it talks about him breaking the Sabbath, right? He's not breaking the Sabbath, he's breaking the so-called oral traditions. The oral traditions. So they accuse him of breaking the oral traditions, and then the Christian people who don't know what the difference is will say he broke the Sabbath because he's the Lord of it. Right. But we know that he could not break the Sabbath and even be Messiah, because we have that foundation, right? But Mark chapter 7, 14. Mark chapter 7, let me go to it. Work chapter 7:14. Read that.
All right. And calling the crowd to him, he said to them, hear me, everyone, and understand. There is no matter that enters a man from outside which is able to defile him, but it is what comes out of him that defiles the man. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. And when he went from the crowd into the house, his top ones asked him concerning to the parable. He said to them, are you also without understanding? Do you not perceive that whatever enters a man from outside is unable to defile him? But because it does not enter his heart, but his stomach, and is eliminated, thus purging all the food. And he said, what comes out of man that defiles a man? For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil reasonings, adulterers, whorings, murderers, thefts, greedy desires, wickedness, deceit, indecency, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these wicked matters come from within and defile a man.
Okay, so the verse is 19. Because it does not enter his heart, but his stomach has eliminated this purging all foods. What's it read in King James? Because it entered not. What you got? You got King James?
Entereth not into his heart, but into the belly, and goeth out into the draught, purging all meats. That ain't the new King James. That's the old.
Yeah. Right.
The new?
So it don't matter. It don't matter what you eat. It can't make you be defiled.
Is that a scripture they use? Huh?
Yeah, they go to that all the time. Look, he says right there. This is the master talking. Don't matter what you eat, it can't make you defiled.
He's talking to Israelites. So of course he's talking about the meats they can eat.
Well,
he ain't talking about pork.
Here you go again with your Torah foundation again.
I'm just saying that's his audience. You got to deal with the audience he's dealing with.
That's you and your Torah foundation saying all this, but I'm just saying that's what these people is going to take you to.
You gotta follow context.
He starts off, this all begins not where we started reading, but they tried to talk to him about eating without washing his hands. So that's how the whole thing started in the first place, dealing with actual dirt. And not going through the little ritual washings that they did before they ate. So the full context, that's the full context. Well, no, not just washing your hands with soap because you got dirt on it, but like the ceremonial washing that they did. Again, more tradition. So
they would like put the water on the one hand.
Yeah, say a little blessing. It wasn't even real washing, it's just putting water on it. Oh, they did all that or not. But okay, but the point is that when we look at we have these the foundation set when we look at the fact that we can't say that Messiah here is telling you to go against the Torah because now we got to kill you and it disqualifies you as Messiah. Right. So no matter what your version says, with that understanding, even if you don't know how that you're supposed to interpret what just happened right there, because you have that foundation, you know that he can't be saying something that's against the Torah.
Exactly. Because then it nullifies him being sinless.
Right.
And it nullifies the perfect sacrifice.
And he's sitting up there and he's teaching people to sin too. Right. So even if you don't know how to explain what's going on right here, if you got that foundation that's in Torah, you could understand that he can't be going against Torah.
Not even Torah. It's in the New Testament, where he himself says, "The man who teaches men to do against the law."
I mean, that's
Go your way and sin no more.
I mean, it's just, it don't make no sense.
no, it doesn't make any sense. You're right.
What's sin no more mean?
All right, so let's okay, so let's let me see. Okay, so let's just let's go back to Deuteronomy and just be done when we get back over. Let me see. Deuteronomy. Going through what was that, 14? Okay, so again, we look where we see the food laws in terms of clean and unclean food. Again, these are the things that that the Most High has given a code of conduct for his people, right? And that thing never changed. So we look at the things that was on the earth in terms of animal, and then he gives us these things for the things that are in the waters, right? Whatever it says, verse 10, whatever does not have fins and scales, you do not eat. It is unclean to you. So me and John was at the zoo, and we sitting up there looking at these fish that we was able or not able to eat. Some of them things, they look kind of crazy, but they had fins and scales. It said you could eat it. Yeah. Some of them was big and ugly and whatever. And you could see the ones that had fins and scales, and you could see the ones that didn't have fins and scales. Nah, you didn't. Yeah. So again, we can think about the fact that catfish, for instance, it don't have any scales, right? It just got skin on it. And we know that catfish are like these bottom dwellers. So we think about the fact that what they are, is the thing that makes them unclean. But Yahweh don't tell us that. He don't say because these things are this, that makes them unclean. He gives you the two characteristics, which is fins and scales, regardless of what it is that they eat. This is how you know. It just so happens that they are that. But again, when you look at carp, if you was to go down to the river right now, you would see catfish and carp living the same life, but doing the same thing. Whatever it is that catfish is doing, them carp is doing the same thing. But carp got fins and scales. So it's not necessarily based on what they eat, but the classifications that Yahweh set forth, which again is these fins and these scales. And the same thing with the birds. When we look at these birds that you don't eat, we think in our minds, well, all of these birds that he's listing are these scavenger type animals, like the eagle and the vulture and the black vulture and the red kite. Some of these things I don't even know what they are. The falcon and the buzzard after their kinds, and the raven, the ostrich, the nighthawk, the seagull, the hawk and their kinds, the little owl, the great owl, the white owl, the pelican. This is a long list of birds, actually. The carrier vulture, the fisher fowl, the stork, the hoopoe, and the bat, which I didn't even think a bat was a bird. It's a mammal.
They called it a bird.
Well,
It was a flying.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, they said fowl of the air. But,
Oh, King James says foul of the air right
no,
there.
no, no. I was just saying, like, when it references those, I'll go and see who's saying
That's
that.
just black.
Yours says back.
What in the world is that?
Well,
Boys.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know what that is either. And then, so all of these things, regardless of what, even a bat, when the thing that did you know of was a bat, they're like vegetarians. I think they just eat grasses and stuff. They might eat little mice or
They
something like
eat.
that.
It depends. There's a lot of
There's
species.
different kinds of different
They'll
ones.
eat insects for the most part. They won't eat. Like, I think that's all. Insects and fruit.
Yeah, and that's what you eat. You eat insects and fruit. Well, most people don't eat the insects that we're able to eat, but you're able to eat insects
Yeah.
and
I've
fruit.
heard of chocolate covered ants.
And I'm gonna get me some before I leave this place. I'm gonna have to get me some of them clean locusts that you're able to eat and little grasshoppers.
Plain locusts.
It's a mealworm, huh? It's a mealworm.
Mealworms, is they on the list? I don't think you can eat no mealworm.
I think you can eat mealworm.
It gotta have a jointed leg that where it hops and don't fly.
Oh, they don't fly.
Yeah, but it's like a maggot, a mealworm. Is that? You just made that up.
No, for real. Like mealworms, like.
Hold on, you can eat them? Hold on, where they at on the list?
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying I've seen them. I've seen was in on the discussion. I don't know. Every creepy thing. We didn't get to that part yet, huh?
These are so every creeping insect that flies is unclean to you. They are not eaten. So it gives you all the so you saying since it's a creeping thing and it don't fly, you saying that. I'm gonna do some more research on that because you ain't gonna catch me eating no mealworms. Some things look nasty.
A lot of that stuff look nasty.
What is a mealworm?
It's like this little
That thing?
like a beige looking thing that if you went to like one of them Indian countries or something, you could catch them.
They have a whole bunch.
They'll be tossing them joints up in like a wok or something, like a big old vat of mealworms. If you ever watch Fear Factor, they probably ate a whole bunch of mealworms on there.
Those, that's nothing on Fear Factor. They probably,
So you start off with the mealworm when you get that big old nasty cockroach looking thing. All right, so anyway, just looking at this again, we have these foods that the Most High is giving us what He wants for us to eat and not eat, and giving us a breakdown as to what He wants, why it is people want to go and go back on this, just like any of the other things that we talked about today. It don't make any sense, right? The Most High told us what He likes and how He wants for us to live and be. And again, that looks a certain way. People want to say that they are followers of the Most High, but the way that they're living don't look like the way that He set in place. They're doing things according to their own heart, but not according to the actual word of Yahweh. So, we have to be able to get to the place where in our lives we're striving to do those things which are pleasing to the Almighty, not those things that are comfortable for us, not the things that that we think should be okay for us to do, but those things that the Almighty literally says for us to do. We have to be able to get to a place where we're able to have the word of Yahweh be the thing that we live our lives by, and not by our feelings and how we think that thing should be, and not even what somebody who sit up there and say that they're somebody who's a prophet or a dreamer, a dream, or some man of God. If what that person has to say is against what the word says, then we have to reject that person and those things, according to the scriptures. Okay, so that being said, does anybody have any parting thoughts or questions or comments before we close out?
No, I actually said what I need to say, but I got a lot out of it.
Okay, then. All right. So that being said, we will go ahead and be done for today. And y'all willing, we will be back next Shabbat. Okay. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Hello.
Have a y'allful day.
All right.